Okay, let's dive into Premier Energy's Q4 financial year 2025 and financial year 2025 results. The disclaimer standard, no guarantees on accuracy, forward-looking statements are subject to risk.
Right, that's the usual legal stuff. So let's get to the numbers.
In the key highlights, the company is reporting revenue of INR 66,521 million, EBITDA of INR 19,142 million, and a PAT of 9,371 million.
Those are some sizable figures. How do they compare year over year? And what contributed to those numbers?
We should get a breakdown of that soon, I imagine. But first, they raised INR 12,920 million through their IPO and have a growing order book of INR 84,456 million. Strong capital base as well, it seems, based on what they're communicating. They also list a cash flow from operations of INR 13,480 million and a total debt equity ratio of 0.69. And the total estimated capex is a whopping INR 125,000 million.
Okay, that debt to equity ratio is relatively conservative, so that's positive. But that capex number is massive. Where is all that investment going?
They detail that on the right in terms of target annual capacity by financial year 2028. Ingots and wafers at 10 gigawatts, cells at 10 gigawatts, modules at 11 gigawatts, aluminum frames at 36,000 MT, and battery storage cell pack and container solutions at 12 gigawatt hours.
So huge expansion plans across the board. Okay, that gives some context to the large capex number.
Right. Let's move on. The agenda shows the presentation will cover business updates, financial performance, and sustainability. Before that, there's also information on the industry itself.
Sounds logical. I'm keen to see how they're justifying that large capex with their financial performance.
Agreed. Now, following the agenda, they offer some About Us background. They are highlighting 30 years of solar manufacturing experience.
It's good to see. Experience matters in manufacturing, especially with newer technologies ramping up.
It mentions their incorporation was in 1995, their first module line in 1999, and their first cell line in 2011. And of course, the IPO in 2024 that we just noted.
Okay, a gradual build-up over time.
Moving to the next point, they provide a bit more detail on capacity expansions over time, showing their growth. They started with small capacities and have expanded significantly over the years. The latest expansion shows cell capacity at 2000 megawatt and module capacity at 4134 megawatt. The graphic on the right indicates equity investment of INR 1.8 billion by GEF Capital.
Good to have external investment validating their plans. Are they profitable enough to fund all this growth themselves, or will they need more capital raises? We will see.
Moving to the next point, they state that they are a leading Indian manufacturer of cells and modules.
Okay, this slide is making a few claims. Let's see if they back them up.
They're highlighting a few key points. Nearly 100% market share in solar cell exports to the US from India, being one of the first Indian companies to manufacture cells, and being a top performer in Kiva Module Reliability Scorecard. They also note they are upgrading from Mono PERC to TOPCon technology.
The US export market share is interesting. I wonder how sustainable that is given increasing domestic manufacturing in the US driven by the Inflation Reduction Act. The tech upgrade to TOPCon is key. Gotta stay competitive.
They also mention ALMM, DCR, and BIS compliance, which are important for accessing Indian government projects.
Absolutely. Compliance is table stakes in this industry, especially in India.
On the next slide, the company claims they want to become India's leading provider of clean tech solutions with an integrated solar module manufacturing capacity of 10 gigawatts. They also note being banked by top Indian IPPs and EPC contractors, as well as backward integration into wafers in JV, with Taiwan-based Sino-American Silicon Products Inc., the world's third largest semiconductor silicon wafer manufacturer.
Bold ambitions. The Sino-American Silicon Products JV is a good move to secure wafer supply. The mention of IPPs and EPC contractors is a good sign, meaning they have existing relationships and customers lined up.
It appears that they want to consolidate market position, upgrade technology, and backward integration, while also an entry into allied products and services.
Diversification beyond just cells and modules. Let's see how serious they are about these allied products and services.
The presentation then moves to industry highlights, starting with growing demand in India and worldwide.
Okay, setting the stage with the macro picture. Makes sense.
They're showing charts of solar PV installed capacity in various regions and power generation capacity addition in India. The India chart is interesting, showing a mix of coal, nuclear, hydro, solar, wind, and biomass.
The chart indicates a substantial growth in solar capacity additions in India between financial year 2025 and financial year 32. However, it also suggests that coal will remain a significant source of power generation in India during this period. What are the implications of this continued reliance on coal for the solar sector?
Right. The next slide highlights complex upstream manufacturing value chain. It outlines the steps from polysilicon to ingot, wafer, cell, and module.
Showing the complexity and capital intensity, I imagine. Also highlighting that China has a strong market share in this sector.
Yes, they label the China market share as high and India's self-sufficiency as low, noting both technology complexity and capex intensity.
Okay, acknowledging the challenges. The key is how they plan to address those challenges.
Following that, the investor presentation highlights the strong policy tailwinds for solar sector.
This is crucial. Government support is essential for the solar industry's growth, especially in developing markets.
They list various schemes and policies like the Solar Park Scheme, Renewable Purchase Obligation, PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana, PM Kusum Scheme, CPSU Scheme, and Green Open Access Rules. They also mention transmission and evacuation system upgrades.
A lot of acronyms, but it basically shows strong government commitment through various demand side and supply side support mechanisms.
They are also highlighting some attractive growth prospects for solar manufacturing.
This slide probably lists the policy incentives for manufacturing specifically, rather than just deployment.
Exactly. Production-linked incentives, ALMM, import duties BCD, state government subsidies, lower corporate tax rate, and domestic content requirement.
The PLI scheme and import duties are key for leveling the playing field against Chinese manufacturers. Let's see how well they're leveraging these incentives.
This current slide also features a chart depicting solar capacity addition in India by type.
It shows a split between utility scale, open access, rooftop solar, and off-grid. There is a clear trend.
Moving to the next point in their presentation, they are presenting strong demand visibility for DCR modules.
DCR modules, meaning domestic content requirement, right? So demand specifically for locally made modules.
Correct. They're showing estimated demand from various government schemes like PM Kusum Yojana, PM Surya Ghar Yojana, and CPSU scheme, as well as corporate rooftop solar and utility scale solar.
They're estimating significant demand over the next 2 years and beyond, especially from the rooftop solar and utility scale sectors.
Then the presentation shifts gears a bit and gives some key sector developments.
This is helpful to get a sense of the current industry landscape.
They mention the solar glass import duty, the US Inflation Reduction Act on hold, a new impetus for manufacturing in the Union Budget 2025, a boost to PM Surya Ghar Yojana, and record renewable project auctions in 2024.
This solar glass import duty is interesting, trying to build a domestic supply chain. The IRA being on hold is a mixed bag, less competition from the US but also less potential for exports there.
And finally, in their discussion of industry highlights, they are presenting evolution in solar cell technology.
An important point. Technology is constantly evolving in solar. Staying ahead is critical.
They show a chart projecting market share for different cell technologies, PERC, TOPCon, HJT, XBC, and thin film. TOPCon is expected to gain significant market share in the coming years.
Which is why they're upgrading to TOPCon, as they mentioned earlier. Makes sense. So that's the industry overview.
Exactly. Now following the presentation's flow, we are getting into business updates.
Finally, some details on the company itself.
First, they're talking about module manufacturing capacity plans. The current capacity is 5.1 gigawatts. Future expansion will bring that to 6.0 gigawatts COD by March 2026.
So capacity expansion happening relatively soon.
There is also mention of ongoing projects for wafers at 2.0 gigawatts COD by June 2026 and 8.0 gigawatts COD by financial year 2028, ingots at 10.0 gigawatts COD by financial year 2028, and cells at 6.4 gigawatts COD by June 2026 and 1.6 gigawatts COD by financial year 2028.
A reminder of their earlier stated goals with more specific dates.
On the next slide, they describe some other growth initiatives. This would be those allied products and services we mentioned earlier.
Let's see if it's just talk or actual investments.
They're planning solar inverters with 3 gigawatts capacity COD by financial year 2026, BESS, cell to pack, and container solutions with 12 gigawatt hours capacity COD by financial year 2028, and aluminium frames with 36,000 MT capacity COD by financial year 2027. They also mention EPC projects.
Okay, so they're serious about diversification. BESS solutions are a smart move given the increasing demand for energy storage.
The deck then shifts and gives some further detail in other business updates.
Expanding on those initiatives, presumably.
They mention a technology partnership with RENA Germany for process innovation, an aluminium frames JV with Nuevosol, an R&D MOU with BITS Pilani, Hyderabad, and a capacity upgrade of commissioned 1.4 gigawatts TOPCon module manufacturing line in Telangana. There is also a rating upgrade and wafer manufacturing JV with Taiwan-based Sino-American Silicon Products Inc. we already mentioned.
The R&D MOU is good for long-term innovation. It's good to see concrete steps being taken to achieve their expansion goals.
They also received BIS IEC and TUV certification for G12 and G12R modules up to 710 watts in size, as well as a Great Place to Work award for the fourth consecutive year.
The certifications are important for product quality and market access, and a positive workplace environment.
Moving to the next slide, their note being selected by the Government of India to support a landmark USD 17 million India-Sri Lanka Clean Energy Initiative.
Some international work as well. Good for diversification and demonstrating their capabilities.
This involves 5,000 rooftop solar systems for religious institutions across Sri Lanka, totaling 25 megawatt solar capacity with 37 million kilowatt hours power generation annually.
A nice project with a good cause. What's next?
The presentation follows with slides highlighting certifications, awards, and accreditations.
Showing off their credentials, which can help build trust with investors.
Exactly. These include Best ESG Performance in Responsible Sourcing, Leading RE Manufacturer, and Excellence in Sustainability Award, Silver category in Best Sustainability Practices, and India's first LEED Gold-rated solar manufacturing facility. There is also Star Labeling certification with 4-star rating, as well as being recognized among India's 500 most valuable companies.
A lot of ESG-related recognition, which is increasingly important for investors.
And on the current slide, they show their order book.
Let's see how strong their pipeline is.
The order book stands at INR 84,456 million or 5,303 megawatt. They show a split by value, 73% module and 27% cell. EPC projects are a very small percentage.
The vast majority of the order book is from modules. The geographic split is almost entirely domestic. And how has that evolved?
It appears that previously, at December 2024, the order book was INR 69,461 million. They then sold INR negative 16,208 and recorded new bookings of INR 31,204 to arrive at the current March 2025 order book of INR 84,456.
So strong bookings overall, net positive. Time to move on.
Let's do it. According to the agenda, the presentation now shifts into financial performance. This is what I have been waiting for.
Me too. Let's see if the numbers back up the story.
First, they start with robust risk mitigation.
Always good to see a company thinking about risk.
They list several key risk areas and their mitigation strategies: key input costs, change in law and import duties, foreign exchange exposure, customer default, low demand, and technology obsolescence.
Prudent strategies, key input cost hedging, and passing on import duties are important in this industry. Investing in new lines helps mitigate technology obsolescence.
The investor presentation follows this by discussing operational performance and revenues.
Time to see some numbers.
Quarterly revenue for Q4 financial year 2025 was INR 16,803 million, compared to INR 11,385 million in Q4 financial year 2024. Capacity utilization for cells was 95% and for modules 75%.
So revenue is up significantly year on year, but slightly down quarter on quarter. Capacity utilization seems healthy.
Annual revenue for financial year 2025 was INR 66,521 million, compared to INR 31,713 million in financial year 2024.
A very significant jump in annual revenue. They list the CAGR as 113.2%.
On the next slide, they show the profitability.
The most important thing.
Quarterly operational EBITDA for Q4 financial year 2025 was INR 5,285 million with a margin of 32.6%. Quarterly PAT was INR 2,778 million with a margin of 16.5%.
Margins look strong for Q4.
Annual operational EBITDA for financial year 2025 was INR 17,809 million with a margin of 27.3%. Annual PAT was INR 9,371 million with a margin of 14.1%.
Significant improvements in both EBITDA and PAT margins compared to last year. The CAGR for PAT is a huge 377%.
The margins are definitely improving and growing.
What's driving the higher profitability? Is it higher volumes, better pricing, lower costs, or a combination of all three?
They do not clarify, but let's keep going. The presentation then turns to revenue mix.
Breaking down where the revenue is coming from.
The revenue mix by geography shows a heavy reliance on domestic sales. By business, module contributes the most to revenue, followed by cell.
Almost entirely domestic sales. How sustainable is that given increasing competition? They need to diversify geographically.
It is also worth noting that revenue from other sources is minimal. On the final financial slide, they show other financial indicators.
What metrics are they highlighting?
Net debt for FYE 2025 is negative INR 9,919 million. The total debt to equity ratio is 0.69. Net working capital days is 72. Net debt to EBITDA ratio is negative 0.52.
The negative net debt EBITDA is interesting, suggesting they have more cash than debt.
Following these highlights, the investor presentation shows the consolidated P&L. I won't read off every number here, but we can see the detailed breakdown of revenue, expenses, and profit.
Okay, a more granular view of the numbers we just discussed, worth a closer look later. Is there a balance sheet and cash flow statement?
Yes, that's what's shown on the next slide. Consolidated balance sheet and cash flow statements.
Alright, it's important to analyze the cash flow statement to assess the company's ability to generate cash from its operations and manage its investments. Is the business actually generating the cash they reported as profit?
It's all here.
Alright, that's the financials covered. How is the presentation organized from here?
According to the agenda, the presentation now shifts to sustainability and ESG.
Important for long-term value creation and to maintain access to capital.
They lead with sustainability goals and that they have adopted of UN Sustainable Development Goals 717.
Good to see them aligning with global standards.
On the next slide, they provide further information on sustainability goals.
More specific metrics, hopefully.
They highlight several achievements. 34% female employees on shop floor, 25%. Women on company board, rainwater harvesting facility with 35 million liters capacity. Zero liquid discharge, avoided emission 49.7 mmTCO2e in financial year 2025 by supply of modules and 20,000 plus hours of employee training annually.
Good to see a focus on diversity, water conservation, and emissions reduction.
The presentation also notes ESOP scheme and being a certified great place to work for the fourth year in a row.
Employee ownership and positive work environment.
On the current slide, they showcase more points related to sustainability goals.
What aspects are they covering here?
They note being India's only LEED gold-rated solar manufacturing facility certification by US Green Building Council as well as zero waste to landfill. There is also mention of traceable and audited sourcing as well as technology automation.
Transparency in sourcing and waste management are important.
They also adopted 9.74 acres for green belt development and implemented GHG emission accounting process for Scope 1 and 2 emissions, as well as a 6.6 megawatt rooftop solar project, reducing Scope 2 emissions by 10,765 TCO2e. They also note being Kiva top performer.
Scope 1 and 2 emissions accounting is good. It is important to understand the full environmental impact of their operations.
And in a final mention of ESG, they discuss empowering communities.
What kind of community engagement are they involved in?
They mention Pediatric Neurology and Epilepsy Center at Nizam Institute of Medical Sciences, electrification of 405 homes in Kondareddipalli village with 3 kilowatt rooftop system per home, diagnostic center equipment and specialized room for Swargvatika Trust, and 45 kilowatt rooftop solar installations at an orphanage in Hyderabad.
A range of initiatives focused on healthcare, education, and clean energy access.
Yes, all these projects are in partnership with Rotary Club.
Excellent. So that's the ESG section covered.
Correct. The presentation concludes with a thank you slide and contact information for the company.
All right, it was a comprehensive look at Premier Energies. Thanks for walking me through it.
You're welcome.